Hey there, this is Emily and Bernie from Third Place Works, where we help co-working professionals with tailored cohorts and one-on-one consulting. Our proven frameworks can help you get focused, stay accountable, and see real results. Want to learn more? Check out the show notes for all the details on how to join us and take your co-working business to the next level.
Hello, folks, and welcome to yet another episode of the Co-working Values Podcast. And our returning finance mentor, Jaskiran, is here in the studio with us. So, what are you known for, and what do you like to be known for?
Hi, hey Bernie, thanks for having me. I'm Jaskiran Mangat. I'm founder of Finance Therapy. So I talk about money and mental health, and I try to help founders and professionals understand and heal their relationship with money, and then build wealth in line with their life goals and build their businesses also in line with those goals.
So, to set the scene, Joyce, who runs the Affordable Workplace Scheme in Islington, put you and me in touch and said, you two should chat. And I just really like the vibe you put out. And I've been to your finance therapy circles, and I just have, after sitting in co-working spaces for nearly 15 years in London, I know that people are deliciously awkward around money. And what I want to talk about in our conversation today is like how you've grown what you've done, because there's this intersection which I haven't quite worked out in my head of you going on this mission to help people articulate their feelings and shadows around money, and the Substack you've built around that and how you communicate that, because it's not an easy thing, is it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, I've been a founder before with a co-founder and building tech and building a community. I think it's much harder. And especially when you're talking about taboos around, money and mental health, these are things that people don't like to talk about. 63% of people don't talk about money because of fear of judgment and shame and guilt. And, mental health, again, is a topic that we're not comfortable as a society admitting that we potentially have a problem with. It's still frowned upon to, admit those things. And we feel like we'll lose our jobs, we'll lose our friends, we'll lose our family if we let them know we're struggling. So building a community around something that people don't like to talk about has definitely been difficult. A lot harder than I thought it would be. I probably went into it with my hope and my optimism of like, yeah, this is the conversation everybody needs. But I think what I've learned in this last, 10, 11 months of consistently posting a different topic every 2 weeks on Substack by holding finance therapy circles every month is that you just have to be consistent because it's something that people do need, they do value. I think more so than anything I've ever done before. This is the thing I do, and people are like, what you do is so needed and it's so important, but it's really still hard to get them to come and engage with and want to actually solve for themselves, because you have to hold those safe spaces and you have to create safe space and you have to help people believe that that space is really safe. And so what I've done through Substack is really be like, I'm going to be here, and it's not like I'm going to be here and then my life's going to get busy and I'm going to give up. And I think when it's something as important as money and mental health, it's like, no, I'm going to be in your inbox every 2 weeks when I say I'm going to be, and I'm going to keep showing up, which allows people to start trusting me, or even trusting that they can have this conversation because it's important enough to somebody else to continue working on.
I don't know, but my gut feeling is it takes ages for this, because as we were talking before we came on, it takes, if you're selling something a little bit more interesting, or not interesting, sort of intoxicating, than how to sort your money out. It takes, on average, 20 people need to read 20 emails, not get 20 emails, read 20 emails before they take action and buy something. And you've got 24 Substack posts, and I'd imagine I'm in my head about my money. It's draining me. There's something I want to ask you about is the cost of living crisis in the UK, because there was the whole election and how that shifted and what you've seen around that. And I'm just sort of shouting that out, interrupting my own question, but it's a long journey to get from I need to sort this out to this. What is the let me go back to that. How do you think the UK is in, or the London, which is probably where you and I know best? How do you think the temperature is around people around the cost of living crisis, keeping their business going, trying to make it all work?
Like, I think everyone I've spoken to this year in some capacity has said it's been really tough. Whether they own a business, whether they're founding something, whether they are side hustling, whether they're looking for a job, it's like been a resounding it's tough. Like, this year has sucked. 2023 wasn't that much better, but 2024, I think we've really seen the kind of compounding effect of things getting more expensive, a change in government, which, there was hope, but obviously things take time. And so, yeah, I think, whether you're a pensioner who's had their winter fuel payments cut, or whether you're a ex-tech worker who got laid off because all the big tech companies laid loads of people off this year, or whether you're a founder who's been looking for funding and there just hasn't been any in the last 2 years. And then we know the stats around, minority founders getting funded, be that from grants, venture capital, angels, and those stats are getting worse. And those have come and gotten worse this year. So if you look at the Atomico report on investment into women and people of color, with those stats dropping, I think, within my communities especially, I've heard it's tough. It's tough to keep going when the cost of living is rising, because what we thought would get us, 6 months of runway has become 4 months of runway, which is really tough when that timer is ticking down and you're like, well, how am I going to keep this business going and pay my rent and look after my family if they have one? And then, on the other side, you've got people in their late 20s, 30s who are like, I'm going to start this business, and then they're moving home to do it, which is great. It's a privilege, but also it's difficult. It's a really hard headspace to be in and say, wow, I was independent, I was self-sufficient, and now I live with mum and dad again. And that plays on you the whole time. It's kind of like, oh, well, I need to get out of this situation. And if this doesn't work out, which, 90% of businesses don't, there's that feeling of I'm going to be a failure. So all of that compounded together, and this is really why I look at the whole thing from a trauma-informed lens, because some communities are going to feel that pressure of feeling like a failure, feeling like a burden, a lot more than others. And that typically also then correlates with who gets funded and who doesn't.
How does it correlate with who gets funded and who doesn't?
Well, I mean, if you look at who gets funded, typically white men, privileged backgrounds, have always had the support behind them, versus who doesn't. Women of color, people with disabilities, people from outside of London typically don't come from, a privileged upper class, middle class background. They've come from a working class background. They've tried to achieve social mobility. They probably have in some way, but that social mobility isn't generational wealth. And so they're the ones who, if they move back in with their parents, there is also an expectation that they were going to look after their parents through retirement. So there's like that feeling of, oh, well, I'm supposed to be looking after my parents, but I wanted to pursue this passion and this dream and have a side hustle or have a business, and I've moved home and my parents are looking after me again. Versus the people who've, it's that thing, right? Looking for a guy in finance, trust fund. Like, trust fund kids moving home for them isn't as shameful in most cases. And that's not a blanket statement. Some people I've met who are from that very privileged background move home and they feel bad for moving home. But, their parents also have a flat in London they've been living in rent-free, so they can come around and, F around and find out. And there's no stigma around it. They've always been encouraged to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue. And again, not a blanket statement, but that's just like a very obvious example that I can give that correlates to, like, when you see who gets funded, it's the people who aren't stressed when they're building because they've got a safety net behind them. And if you're not stressed, you're going to build a better business. You're going to build better. You're going to build faster.
I've seen that so many times, and it's sort of, some people listening might think that's a bit of a cheap shot, but I've been wandering around Old Street Roundabout for nearly 15 more years now, and so many of those people just get funded. And if you look at so many tech companies and real estate deals and everything like that are all around those people, and a lot of those people are really nice, but it's definitely easier. I was shocked at how I just thought the minority funding was really crap, and I didn't realize how horrific it was until a podcast we did a couple of years ago with Catherine from Colour in Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, it's only about 10%, isn't it?" And she goes, "No, it's like 1%. What's wrong with you?" And it is. So you said earlier it's gone down, and I always like to reinforce this thing. So, how's it changed this year in terms of funding for females and people of colour?
Oh God, you're going to pull me on my stats. I mean, it's marginal, so I'm not going to get the numbers right here. Catherine's great; she probably knows off the top of her head. But it's normally, or has been for the last 4 years I've been in this industry, 2% of VC funding goes to women, and it's something like 0.02% to women of color. And I think it's now just under 2%. You'll have to pull up the Atomico report on diversity in venture capital.
Link in the show notes.
Yeah, and they publish that every year, and it's come down. And then I think it's also that if you were a male founding team at the moment, it's like you're 81% less likely to get funded if you now have a female on your team. So
Wow.
yeah, so even that, like even if you have male co-founders and you have one female in your founding team, you're now 81% less likely to get funded. And so, yeah, I don't know. I personally, as a woman of color, don't find it acceptable. A woman of color who was born in this country, went to university in this country, worked in corporate in this country, I don't know. I just have a very strong sense of justice. And I think there's 4 years of hearing these same stats and hearing, oh, it's like institutional, it's on track record. And I'm like, at the end of the day, you've got to call bullshit when it's bullshit, because women are also now statistically better educated and smarter than men. So
that's the case in my house for sure.
And so it's not adding up anymore. And so when people are talking about pipeline problems and saying that you've got to have a track record, it's like, well, who has a track record? At the end of the day, if people are getting funded on their first or second startup, why is the track record better depending on your genitalia? Because the track record of education, the track record of opportunity in the workplace has changed.
So is this, in your opinion, is this people who handing out money, is it them playing it safe and going with what they know, or is it deliberately taking care of the people they know?
I think there's a lot of different things at play, but I think that there's people like to invest in, whether it's time, money, effort, network, in things that are familiar to them. And so, yeah, a bit of like going it safe with what they know. Not that you know that person, right? Just because they look like you, it doesn't mean that they are like you. So there's definitely an element of that. There's a lot of different things around unconscious bias. And I think what I've seen in the space around unconscious bias is like, oh, we all have an unconscious bias. And so let me just let myself off the hook. And it's not an acceptable thing. I think it's like, that's like saying allow people to be racist because they unconsciously hate Black people, right? And I've with Emily Horton, who runs More Diverse Voices, we've built a fearless funding school, which has been backed by Good Tech Ventures, and it's a program. It's a 2-month program course aimed at funders. So whether you're a grant giver, whether you're a investor, an angel investor, a VC, from an LP organization, the big organizations who put money into VC funds, for you to come and have a look at one, your unconscious bias and really understanding like what do you really believe, and how do you start unlearning these things and learning new ways of building strategy and how you can give money and how you can support people. And then on the other side, it's like the comms and the communication side of things in terms of how do you attract a more diverse pipeline, because actually with millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha to come through now, people aren't accepting it anymore. And so if they see money coming from somewhere, that I've heard a lot in the space of, I don't want your money. I don't want a seat at your table. I want to build my own. And so, as we go through this next kind of decade, those people are going to start seeing a shift in who they can even fund. And you hear the pipeline problem, right? So diversify your communications. How do you attract more people from diverse backgrounds, people with disabilities, people from outside of London, people of color, women, to come to you with their ideas and look for funding? Because at the end of the day, you're not asking for a handout, it's an investment opportunity. And so that's an opportunity on both sides. So yeah, we're looking at that. We're looking at like, how do you look at your own unconscious bias and how does that play into where you fund? Looking at your actual strategy for investing, looking at your comms channels and how do you diversify those, and then looking at like building an like impact measurement kind of system and strategy, and putting all of those things together to build out a more diverse funding strategy that you would walk away with at the end of those 2 months, because you're working on it as your own case study throughout that time.
So in those comms, I'm asking this because I know someone might have thought, how do I do that? Is in those comms, how do you like make your website connect with a diverse community without going onto Canva and using the, happy token person of color in the library? Because that people make the effort to do something, but then I always think it looks like, oh my God, you've just like put that person on there so you look like you're attempting diversity, which is better than doing nothing at all. But then like, how do you really connect with people so they feel like, what's that thing? Is you can have an invitation, you can come to the disco, but then being invited to dance is a different thing. So they actually feel like people feel like, this is the place for me, rather than they're having a go, aren't they? But really, that looks a bit shit in there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to walk the walk, right? So it's language. I don't care if you've got a picture of a stock image of 3 people of color on your thing. I used to work for a bank and they used to round us up as people of color and being like, come and do the photo shoot for the prospectus. And I would be like, absolutely not. So, and others
That's
did.
exactly what I meant.
No,
I
but
should have asked you for
other
an
people,
example.
yeah, I mean, other people, my colleagues, other grads on the grad scheme did it. And I was like, absolutely not happening. And I see it everywhere. I see it in my gyms. I see it all over the place. We're not stupid as people of color. Like, we don't look at that and go, oh my God, there's people like me there, I'm going to go. We're just, we've lived too much of a life. So I think in terms of the language that you use, but also walking the walk. Like, I don't care about a prospectus with pictures on it. I care about a prospectus with output on it. Like, what value did you bring? How did you help people? Who did you help? What was the outcomes for those people? Or what were the outcomes for those people when you supported them, be it through an accelerator program, be it through a funding program, be it through a grant, be it as an angel investor? Obviously, angel investors aren't putting out pitch decks for you to come to them. I'm not I don't think so anyway. But those are the things where you start in terms of like really understanding what does inclusive language look like, and then you also are looking for something. And so it's not just up to the founder to pitch and say, this is what the output's going to be, this is what the value is going to be. It's also up to you as the funder or the program to show people like, wow, well, this is who we've worked with and this is the impact that they've made. And so that's part of our impact. Yeah, and that's why I think it's also important having a good impact strategy, which a lot of people don't have. You see like some of the more impactful VC funds and angel syndicates now putting out impact reports every year. That's part of your portfolio. I will read that. As somebody who may look for investment one day, that's what I want to see. What impact have you made? Who have you helped? Do you really care about social impact? Or were you looking for a 10x exit in 5 years from this business who meant well and then did everything for growth at all costs instead to appease you?
What do you think about impact reports these days?
Well, depends on whose impact report we're talking about. I think there's still a lot missing. When I did Year Here, we did a lot of work on understanding like systems change and systems of oppression, but also impact, and how do you measure impact, and how do you measure impact without extracting information from people unfairly. And I mean, I would hope that people are being more aware of, like, when they go into communities and they start extracting information, how they're doing it, what benefit it's actually going to make to the community, what pain they're actually going to cause. I think that I don't think anyone's doing anything with a trauma-informed lens very well. Very, very few people, very few pockets. And I think that more so happens at the business level, obviously, because they work directly with the beneficiaries. I think impact reports as you go up the chain are more so to tick boxes at the moment.
I think there's that tick boxing thing is what worries me, because there's people in the co-working world and they put out impact reports and I know they're true and I'm like, that is amazing and I love the way you're doing it, and it's more, as much of it is, there's all the business reason they need to do it, they are actually doing that stuff, and I've seen them doing it for 5 years before they even had the capacity to make an impact report.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people that kind of, I don't know, use some AI bot to put it together and publish it on LinkedIn and then go to the pub. Before we disappear, can you invite people to your finance therapy circle? Because that's just explain what that is, because they're really important and I really enjoy them.
Yeah, so this whole year I've been running a monthly online community called Finance Therapy Circle. And we gather online. It's 5:30 p.m. UK time, and we have people gather from all over the world, and it's just a space to explore your relationship with money, to share with other people, listen, reflect, to offer them, whether you resonate with what they're saying or your own kind of experiences. And we connect mind, body, and money in that space. So my whole intention for the Finance Therapy Circle is that people get to experience nervous system regulation and then get to have conversations about money, or about, parts of life that money touches or impacts, which is, everything, but from a regulated place. And so we have a somatic practice, and I lead us in a meditation or a breath work or a visualization or some combination of these things. And then we open up the circle, just like a healing circle, and it's participant guided. So you can come with whatever you want to come with. You can choose to share or not. And we have, about an hour of conversation. And then we just close off with another breath work so that you feel, again, grounded and regulated before you go off with your day or evening, depending on where you are. But yeah, the whole idea is to get people comfortable talking about money in what I try to keep a safe space. I know that every space is not safe for everybody, but I facilitate the space with, the idea that we don't come here with judgment. We don't shame anybody. Everybody's experience is valid, but it's an opportunity to potentially say things that you've never said before, or to articulate things that you've never been able to articulate before, or hear other people and get yourself kind of thinking and more confident in being able to talk about money. And my hope is that then you leave and you're able to have the conversations about money you've maybe been putting off for a lifetime with the people that you need to have them with, knowing that nothing bad happened to you when you said those things out loud to other human beings.
It is great. It makes me feel like I'm not insane and a loser, because I go and hear people talk quite naturally, like, oh, this happened to me and I felt this and I felt this way for years, and I thought it was just me,
Mm-hmm.
It's a really I'm going to say beautiful little space, which sounds awfully cheesy, but we're going to put a link in the show notes to this, and who's it for? That's one of the things that, because it is for everybody, but that sounds a bit vague.
I mean, if you're a human being and you've ever had to interact with money or the system of money, it's for you. And I always put in my kind of like my LinkedIn posts or on Instagram, like, bring your grandma if you want to bring your grandma. Like, send your mum, or your dad. It is for everybody. I think by virtue of me being a woman, I do attract more women, but you've been in the group and other men have joined the group at different stages, and the idea that problems with money are gendered, or the problems with mental health are gendered, I just don't buy into. I've tried to solve problems just for women, or tried to solve problems just for certain demographics. But what I find is that everybody has those problems. It's just some groups are more willing to talk about it than others. And I'm not here to divide people by gender. Or by, age or whatever it is. I direct my other work at certain groups, professionals and founders. And my writing is directed at any human being that it resonates with. And it's the same as this, there's enough things out there that divide us. And I think that having conversations about money, if a 60-year-old woman comes with all of her wisdom and all of her experience and comes and shares something that a 22-year-old young professional just graduated university can learn from, like, that's amazing to me. And I would never want to cut that out and say you can't come because of your age or your profession.
That's a very good way of positioning it. I can feel that. That's what the group is. Where we're going to put links in the show notes to everything, but where's the best place to connect with you and follow your work online?
Yeah, so my next finance therapy circle is the 18th. From next year, we'll be doing those the second to last week of the month, and I rotate the days so that if you have a commitment every Monday or something, you'll be able to join eventually. You can find me on LinkedIn as Jaskiran Mangat. That will come in the show notes. You can find me on Substack at Finance Therapy, where I write on money and mental health. And you can find me on Instagram at Money with Jas, where I'm starting to try and be more present and around. But I'm on LinkedIn every day and Substack every couple of weeks.
I love the way you say I'm not doing very well at Instagram, and then you're like killing it on Substack and LinkedIn. That's
Yeah, I mean, we can't do everything. I'm one human being, and I do also have to run the business. So, but yeah, I think if anyone knows how to get me at Finance Therapy on Instagram, because there's a lot of dead accounts on there, hit me up. I kind of want that handle, but I can't have it, so I'm Money with Jas over there.
Money with Jas. So we will put a link to all that in the show notes, and Substack is where you can follow your work. And we are on Substack, and we love Substack for the Co-working Values podcast. I think we found our home, because for a long time we were like running around different podcast platforms and websites, and in every episode we do, there's a link in the show notes. So there's the Co-working Values podcast on LinkedIn. You can follow that there, and we publish episodes there. There's European Co-working Day. There's the massive co-working LinkedIn group where we're encouraging more and more people to share genuine, as in not fake, stories of what's going in your co-working place. And then if you're in London at the end of February next year, there's the Workspace Design Show and the London Co-working Assembly and the European Co-working Assembly. We'll be running events and antics there with our friends over at Urban MBA. Have a lovely week, and wherever you are, be careful out there. It is a jungle.